In this Elder Scrolls Online video, we're going to be taking a look at the changes coming to the Vampire skill line with the Greymoor expansion on the 25th of May on PC and later in June on console. This skill line has taken a huge transformation in the way that it works, so let's jump into that. The first ability we're going to take a look at is Blood Scion. This is the new ultimate ability for the Vampire skill line, replacing Bat Swarm. And it works kind of like the Bone Goliath from Necromancer. It increases your max health, magic, and stamina by 10,000. And you heal for 15% of all damage you deal, and you can see enemies through walls. It has a couple of morphs. One is Swarming Scion, which gives you the Bat Swarm effect that Bat Swarm used to have, dealing damage around you, and obviously you heal for some of that damage. It's not quite as heal-friendly as Bat Swarm originally was, but it operates very similarly. And then you have Perfect Scion, which increases your Vampire to Stage 5, which gives you the benefits of Stage 4 Vampirism with none of the drawbacks. Vampirism works a bit differently now. It does have some of the same penalties that it used to have. Health recovery goes down as you go up. Flame damage taken goes up as you go down. But now regular ability costs increase the higher vampire tier you have, and vampire ability costs decrease. So now basically you're going to get that vampire ability cost all the way down to 40%, but you're going to have none of the other negative effects when you take that morph. The next ability we're going to take a look at that's new is Eviscerate. This is a direct damage spell, kind of your spammable one enemy attack. It deals magic damage within a 5-meter range, and it deals increased damage based on your missing health. So the lower health you have, the more damage it's going to deal. And it has a couple morphs. One that changes the cost from magicka to health, so it's going to lower your health as you use it, meaning that the more you spam it, the more damage it's going to do. And it increases the amount of damage based on your missing health even further. So this is going to be interesting, probably a good morph for maybe like a tanky character that has a lot of points invested in health, so they can use their health as a resource and keep that damage, about the same as it would be, or maybe even higher than if you're using it standardly. And then the Arterial Burst morph allows you to critically strike if you always have below 50% health, which is huge if you have a very good amount of crit damage. This could be a very strong ability. The next ability is a toggle ability that you can toggle on or off, and while you toggle it on, Blood Frenzy will actually reduce your health by a certain amount every 1 second in exchange for a good amount of weapon and spell damage. So you'll have to manage this, and you can also not be healed by anyone other than yourself during this time, so you really have to manage your health while doing this. But it kind of synergizes nicely with Eviscerate, because the lower your health, the more damage that's going to do, so you're probably going to use these in tandem. The Simmering Frenzy morph allows you to increase the health cost over time, and also increase the benefits. So it's kind of a higher risk, higher reward proposition. If you get good at managing your health, then you can really increase your damage. Makes a good case for a vampire to have a high health pool, because you can really buff your weapon and spell damage to increase, your damage to a good amount, while sacrificing magicka or stamina in order to have a high health pool to get these anyway, making you kind of tanky when they're not on. And Sated Fury makes it so that you heal yourself for them 30% of the health that you basically generated that took from you while it was active. So maybe if you leave this up for a long period of time, maybe it does 30,000 damage to you while you're healing, then you gain 30% of that back when you toggle off. That's a huge heal. So this is a very, very good morph for someone that, is probably learning to play this ability, and you might want to switch to Simmering Frenzy when you get a better hang of it. So the next ability is Vampiric Drain, and this is going to be a channel ability that does a certain amount of magic damage and heals you for a percentage, like 23% of your missing health every 1 second for 3 seconds. So if your health's going to go up and down a lot as you play a vampire, obviously, from the abilities you've seen so far. And this is a great way to get a lot of that missing health back quickly if you're really low. So this is going to be your kind of like panic heal button. The morphs Drain Vigor also replenishes a certain amount of your missing stamina. So if you're playing a stamina build, this is a great way to gain back a bunch of stamina, particularly if you have a very high pool. And Exhilarating Drain generates ultimate, so this is going to help you produce more ultimate faster. It doesn't give you the buff that, increases ultimate heroism. It's separate from that, so this is going to stack with heroism if you have minor and major heroism as well. So it's a good choice for one if you're not a stamina user or you don't need stamina, maybe if you're playing PvE, in order to get more ultimate quickly. The next ability is Mesmerize. This stuns everyone in front of you for 5 seconds. Can't be blocked. That's looking directly at you. So this is kind of like a conal AoE stun, which is extremely powerful. because you can stun so many people with it. And the Hypnosis morph actually makes it so that it's the area around you, a 7-meter area. So if you run into a pack of enemies, let's say you're PvPing, you run into a group, and then you AoE stun all around you, super strong because stuns, again, cannot be blocked. And the Stupefy morph makes it so that instead of having the AoE AoE stun, you reduce the movement speed by snaring enemies after the stun exists. So these are both really good morphs. I can see Hypnosis being a lot more useful in PvP, and maybe Stupefy useful for PvE, maybe if you're a tank, stunning everything and then slowing it so your team can AoE it down. So Mist form is still there. It's still one of the Vampiric abilities. I think people would panic if it wasn't. And Elusive Mist is still one of the morphs, making your movement speed increased when you're in that shape. And there's also Blood Mist now, which deals damage around you and heals you while you're in Mist form. I can't imagine this is going to be as useful in PvP, but maybe in certain situations. I can see it being more useful in PvE when you need to reduce the damage you're taking and you can heal, like if you have a whole bunch of enemies around you or maybe a boss. But both of those are still there, or that morph, that ability is still there, so good news about that. So as far as passives go, one of the new things about Vampirism, as I mentioned earlier, is that in each stage of Vampirism, now your regular ability cost is going to increase and your vampire ability cost is going to decrease. This means that if you're playing a vampire, you're going to want to use a lot of vampire abilities because it's going to be resource beneficial to you, and probably try and use fewer of your class abilities or weapon abilities to try and sort of offset that, to make sure that you're not paying like plus 20% more cost for these abilities that, there's no reason to use them if you're not going to be using vampire abilities. So this means if you're going to be playing a vampire now, you're going to be playing a vampire. It's not just, give me Elusive Mist and some good passives and that's all I'm going to use. You're going to be using vampire abilities and it's going to play a little bit more like a werewolf. Dark Stalker is the first passive, and this decreases the time it takes to enter sneak. This was something vampires had, I believe, at the end of their skill line before. Now it's at the beginning. It's always good being able to get into sneak faster when you're out in Cyrodiil. So this is something that, is good that it's still there. They also have a new passive called Strike from the Shadows, which increases your weapon and spell damage when you're invisible, sneaking, or in mist form for 6 seconds. So this is going to lend itself extremely well to maybe like a Nightblade type play, somebody who's going to jump at you. So I expect a lot of Nightblades to be vampires as if they weren't already, but they're definitely going to want to be now. Blood Ritual is still there, allowing you to turn other people into vampires, so no worries there. You can still turn all your friends or alts or whoever, although I don't know how you do it on alts unless it was a different account, but you can turn whoever you want into a vampire once every 7 days. The Undeath ability is still there. It's going to reduce the damage you take based on your missing health, so the lower you get in health, the less damage you're going to take, which has been pretty typical of vampires. So this hasn't changed a whole lot, and players will still be using this, I'm sure. The last passive of Vampire skill line is incredibly powerful. At stage 4 Vampirism, you actually reduce the cost of sprinting by 50%, and if you continuously sprint for 3 seconds, you automatically become invisible. I can see this being a huge thing in battlegrounds where people are sprinting all the time, particularly trying to get to objectives quickly and out in Cyrodiil. And just the sprint cost reduction alone means that they don't need a huge stamina pool. They're going to be sprinting everywhere. You combine this with some of the new mythic items that like increase your movement speed and other movement speed sets, and it's going to be super, super powerful. So I think people are really going to enjoy this. And unfortunately, I think this means that, Vamps were so popular before, probably going to be even more popular now. But the upside is that, they're going to be using less class and weapon abilities and more vampire abilities. So the way you fight vampires should be very much the same. It's not going to matter as much which class they are. There's obviously going to be different synergies with different classes. But most vampires are going to play relatively the same. I'd say 60 to 70% the same because of the way the abilities are set up. So if you're fighting a vampire out in Cyrodiil and battle rounds, you're probably going to use a similar strategy no matter what class they are. Stay tuned. We have a video coming on the breakdown of all the Greymoor changes, what's coming with, across the entire game, what they've changed and updated for that expansion. And we have some videos coming as well on the mythic items and the new sets, so be sure to check those out. If you have questions about the game, be sure to drop by Discord or check us out on Twitch. We're going to be streaming at launch, and there's always the Elder Scrolls Online Wiki if you need further help.